Is Gordon Hayward finally returning to form? My name is Mike Petraglia, joined by Chris Grenham of the Celtics blog and, of course, CLNS Media. This Garden Report is brought to you by 1-in-100. Go to 1in100.co now and register for your chance to win Killer Pat's Celtics and Bruins tickets and some of the best concerts in town for the cost of a large pizza or a beer. Again, go to 1in100.co now and register today. All right, some interesting comments, I thought, Chris, from Gordon Hayward himself and Kyrie Irving about Gordon Hayward. And it's all about the rhythm and the confidence of Gordon Hayward. And we're finally starting to see some glimpses here on Friday night. Gordon Hayward had 14 points in a Celtics 128-95 win over the lowly Cavaliers. Yeah. What did you think of Gordon Hayward's performance, and are we starting to see good signs?
Yeah, it's every game is another step in the right direction. I mean, Friday night was another case of that. He looked confident with the ball. He was slashing to the hoop, which we really haven't seen yet this year. He's been great on the defensive end, which started a couple weeks ago, but now that's starting to help him create on the offensive side of the ball. He's shooting the three with more confidence. Obviously, he struggled a lot with that in the early going, so I think it's his entire game that's starting to come into fold. And Kyrie mentioned that earlier this week at practice. He said at one point, Gordon's a star in this league. He was a star in this league, and he still is. So he needed to remind him that and wants him to play like that, and he's starting to get to that point.
He was 6 of 9, and I thought most of the shots he took were clean looks. They weren't forced, and that could be said for all of the Celtics. But I think the Celtics need to feed off Kyrie and Gordon to really get their offensive machine going.
Yeah, I mean, when you hear everyone talking about, what's wrong with Boston, what's wrong with the Celtics, it all comes back to Gordon Hayward. He's not in his rhythm. He's not the old Gordon, is what you keep hearing. And it's going to take a long time. But I think, in my opinion, it's a little sooner than we thought. He's coming around pretty quickly all of a sudden. And I think a lot of that starts to do with the rest of the team. You have Marcus Morris and Marcus Smart creating on the defensive side of the ball, which opens him up on the offensive side. And I think he's just more comfortable, and it's all about confidence. Once he gets more comfortable, he's exploding a little bit more off of that ankle, and it's all about confidence for him, so it's important at this point.
Interesting that Kyrie, after the game on Friday night, said he wanted to give Gordon some space and pick and choose his spots for encouraging him to be more aggressive, because he didn't want to pressure Gordon into feeling like, oh, I got to go to the hoop, oh, I've got to take my shots.
Yeah, and it was similar. We heard a lot about Terry Rozier forcing early in the year, but Gordon was doing it early on too. He was trying to become his old self, and he was forcing. And he referred to his old self as Old G during the press conference tonight, which I thought was great. But he looks back on Old G, but now we've got New G, and he's not forcing. Like you said, he's not forcing those long twos. He's relaxed, and he's playing more of his game, and I think Kyrie has a lot to do with that.
The other thing that I found very eye-opening is Gordon looked at a moment, Gordon Hayward did on Friday night, where he thought the old G could go up and dunk the ball, but the new G, obviously, post the ankle injury, had to settle for the layup. But what was interesting about that, I thought, Chris, is he's not trying to do something even close to the basket that he's not capable of doing.
Right, and he's figuring out what he can and can't do. He's figuring out new G, essentially. And I think earlier in the year, he was trying too hard to become his old self, and he's going to be a good player again, but he's going to be a different player. He's not going to be the same guy we saw in Utah, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. He's just going to be different. So over the course of the next few weeks, we're going to see him adapt and see him kind of learn to his new tendencies, and we've already started seeing that.
Are we going to see Kyrie look for Gordon Hayward more in the offense?
Yeah, I think so. As Kyrie creates space more and even works off the ball a lot, potentially see Gordon Hayward working as that primary ball handler, and that'll create space for himself. And so I think you'll see a lot of two-man game between the two of them.
You think he looks good coming off the bench and comfortable coming off the bench, or, eventually maybe in a week or 2 or 3 weeks, it won't matter. He'll be rotating in and out of the starting lineup?
Yeah, I think he'll be rotating in and out of the starting lineup maybe a little more than a month from now. I think it'll take some time because he's still, I don't want to say shelve himself, but he's still coming back. So I think right now you'll see him work off the bench for a while, but he's comfortable doing that. He knows his role. He's a guy who's been in the league long enough to know it's not a demotion to come off the bench. He's playing his role for this team. So soon enough, he'll be back in the starting lineup, but for now I think he's comfortable in his role.
Indication after the game on Friday night that he expects to play in Minnesota, which is important because he wasn't able to play in the back-to-back recently, and now he says, if the ankle checks out Saturday morning after we get off the long flight to Minnesota, and it's okay, I expect to play on Saturday night, which would be another good sign in the recovery in the return to form for Gordon Hayward. This Garden Report has been brought to you by 1in100. Go to 1in100.co now and register for your chance to win Killer Pat's, Bruins, and Celtics tickets, as well as concert shows throughout New England for the cost of a beer or a large pizza. Inside TD Garden, my name is Mike Petraglia for Chris Grenham. This has been the Garden Report, CLNS Media.